Welcome to a brand new season of No Planet P. In season 1, we got to interact with 12 eminent guests and change makers working across the domains of sustainability and climate change. Before we start season 2, I want to thank each and every one of you for your words of encouragement and support. Thank you for being a part of our journey. Without further ado, let's get right into today's episode. This is Chinese proverb that says, "The one who returns from a journey is not the same as the one who left." We have with us today the co-creator of Travelers University, Ashik Krishnan. He is a avid traveler, a great storyteller, and I'm so happy to have Ashik with us today. Let's welcome him to our show.
Yes.
How are you?
All well, all going well. Yeah.
Ashik, I was going through the website of Travelers University and these three words stood out: travel, explore, and unlearn. Can you tell us more about Travelers University?
Yeah. So yes. So Travelers University is a platform to support individuals who wish to design their own learning process, and people who are interested in travel as a pedagogy for their own learning, to pursue the different interests that they have, to pursue different skills that they have. So Travelers University, we design and offer various travel-based experiential learning programs, both short-term and long-term. And the basic context or the premise is that of the kind of disconnection that we face today. So part of the crisis of today's time is also the crisis of disconnection. Like while we are connected with so many people like through the medium of internet, there is a larger disconnection that one experiences with one's own self, disconnection with people around, disconnection with the rest of nature. Those are some of the key elements that are part of each of our programs. Ways and processes to connect with one's own self, the community that's there around, and with the rest of nature. And at the same time, learning from grassroots initiatives, which are working towards a more inclusive and just world.
Ashik, coming to the topic of discussion today, the pursuit of livelihoods. The term is fairly new to me. So, can you explain what the term means and what drives you about this concept of a livelihood?
Yes, so a livelihoods as a name suggests, it is the kind of livelihoods that make us feel alive from within as we are involved in it. Um, and today when we look at it, like a lot of jobs or careers have become deadlihoods where the person involved in the job or career, like they don't feel alive, they don't feel joyous while being involved in that job. And with the lockdown following the COVID-19 pandemic, we saw that we saw a lot of people losing their jobs. We saw that a lot of modern day jobs can either be replaced with like other cheap labor or with technology. So in such a and the idea of livelihood is about like is about sustaining one's own life, and this is the idea of life in itself. So the life in livelihood is missing out, like in a lot of modern day jobs today. um, so how can we bring back the aliveness, how can we bring back the joy, how can we bring back the autonomy and sovereignty attached to one's own life? So that is the idea of livelihoods. So livelihoods are basically livelihoods that are, say, oriented towards social well-being, ecological well-being, and personal well-being, like at the same time, like, rooted in the values of localization. And we see that like at a personal level, like someone pursuing a livelihood, there is a certain like intentional living attached to it. So it is not just about the livelihood, so it's also about the kind of lifestyle you lead. And lifelong learning is an active process involved in it. And at the community level, as more and more people pursue different livelihoods, whether it be, say, um, agroecology or waste management or place-based learning systems, and so on, we see that like these aids localization eventually, and helps build like more like stronger and resilient communities. And at the planet level, we see that it eventually it would address the climate crisis or the climate issues and like mitigate the global inequalities, because a lot the kind of economic model that we have today is rooted in the idea of capitalism, wherein which thrives on inequity and inequality. So it is these inequities and inequalities that we hope we will be able to mitigate or address as more and more people pursue livelihoods.
And are there any programs under Travelers University that embraces this concept of livelihoods?
The one program that we facilitate, wherein we directly facilitate a livelihoods, that is the 52 Parindey Fellowship program that we run. It's a 6 month long fellowship program for youth for interested in pursuing various livelihoods, and it gives them direct hands-on experiences and direct learning experiences, like through people or initiatives or collectives that are already involved like in such pursuits.
Can you tell us more about the Parindey Fellowship and how did this term Parindey come up?
Yeah,
Who
Parindey
are
means
these
bird, and
52
so like
Parindey?
we kind of imagined it as a like free bird idea of free bird. Yeah, so the name comes from like a gap year project that happened before Travelers University, which like the other co-creator of Travelers University, Rahul Karanpuria, he's from Bhilwara, Rajasthan. So this was his journey which Rahul undertook in 2015-16, wherein he traveled across India for a year and met with 52 different individuals, people who are no walkers on mainstream, basically people who had designed their own paths. So that is where the idea of a free bird comes in, and so hence the project was named 52 Parinde project. The idea was one to bring the idea of gap year, like to have the conversation at last, like to bring it to the mainstream crowd, and at the same time, um, to celebrate stories of people who are working on like grassroots initiatives or who are like innovators in that sense. Um, so Rahul's personal reflection after, so he traveled across India for a year, met with 52 different individuals, people who are into say education, conservation, waste management, theater, and so on. And he documented their stories in both written and video formats. And after the year-long journey, Rahul's personal reflection was that most of his life lessons came from the travel. So he wanted to set up a platform where to support more people to travel and learn and pursue the different interests and skills that they have that they would like to build for themselves. So that's how Travelers University happened. And a few of us having no different journeys, who were having different journeys earlier, like Ashwini, who's from Dehradun, Uttarakhand, Preksha, who's from Mumbai, Maharashtra. I'm from Thrissur, Kerala. All of our journeys came to one point, and then we took Travelers University's journey ahead together. And we also have another team member now, Shruthi. She's from Bangalore, Karnataka. So yeah, so Travelers University, like all the members are from all different parts of the country, and it is like our own individual journeys, like our own pursuit of our own livelihood that brought us together, and now we facilitate it for more other people.
These two terms, livelihoods and social entrepreneurship, they both look into giving back to the society, right? So, this day and age, why do you think that it is important we invest more into social entrepreneurship versus a commercial entrepreneurship setting?
Yeah, sure. Social the idea of social entrepreneurship, again, like it has like varied meanings attached to it. So maybe I'll share from the perspective or from the lenses of alternatives, as we call it. Um, so alternatives are, I mean, can be like practical experiments or like tools or frameworks that are alternatives to the dominant model. So dominant model as in like the dominant economic model or the dominant model of development or the dominant political models that are exploitative and extractive in nature. And that is what we see at large today. Uh, so there is like one part is to like resist the exploitation and extraction, and at the same the other part is to create new models, or like older models to reassert it in the modern times, like with a newer set of values and so on. um, So when it comes to alternatives, there are there's a larger process that's happening in the country, which is called the Vikalp Sangam process, which essentially means alternatives conference. Which is a group of around like 90 different organizations, collectives across the country, who are connected by a common thread, or which is a set of common values and principles, which is about imagining a more inclusive, just, and sustainable and equitable world, um, which is about finding meaning in the kind of pursuits that we are involved in, and so on. So for us, like the idea of livelihoods, the idea of alternatives, the idea of social enterprises, all these are linked in that aspect. So when we look at like all the different initiatives or the people whom our fellows directly go to meet and learn from, they are social enterprises, like in that aspect, because they are working towards like community autonomy, or like their own like sovereignty, rooted in the same values of inclusivity and justice. Um, and when it comes to Vikalp Sangam, also the different initiatives that are part of it, they can be called social enterprises, but like wouldn't be in the conventional way of profit making, but in terms of shifting the idea from the profit to prosperity, and shifting the idea from say like scarcity to abundance, or like shifting the pattern from uh, like extraction and consumption to a newer pattern of conservation and regeneration. So yeah.
Listening to you, Ashik, I'm so inspired to know that there are so many social enterprises working at the grassroots levels, trying to strengthen our communities. Is there one such social enterprise that you take inspiration from? Somewhere, how it started and how it is today.
Yeah, there are several. So again, the kind of stories that we are told today, or that we like that come to us by and large, are like stories of, say, like stories of doom and gloom, stories of death and despair, and stories of hopelessness. But there are like you said, there are like thousands of grassroots initiatives that are like reimagining or visioning a different way of being and doing. And on the Vikalp Sangam website, again, there are around 1,800 such like stories that are already documented. And through the 52 Parindey Fellowship too, we are like, one part is to document such initiatives so that more people can be inspired by them and directly visit them, learn from them. So like facilitating that also. So for me, there are various initiatives, like say um, Timbaktu Collective in Andhra Pradesh. There is Deccan Development Society in Telangana, Hyderabad.
Development.
Deccan Development Society.
Deccan Development. Okay.
Then there is, say, Tribal Health Initiative in Sitlangi Valley, Tamil Nadu. So like all these are initiatives that are working for, say, DDS is 40-year-old, Timbaktu Collective and Tribal Health Initiative, both are like 30-year-old initiatives. And these are some of the initiatives that I've had the fortune to visit and learn from the creators and of those initiatives. And then that is where like I find inspiration from. Because like I say, if we take the case of Deccan Development Society, like 40 years ago, so they work with like Dalit and Adivasi women, and like 40 years ago, these were people who were living in like utter poverty, and like who didn't have their own land, who didn't have like an extra pair of clothes to wear, and so on. The people who are marginalized at different levels, like one because they are from Dalit and Adivasi communities, another because they are landless peasants, another because they are women. But today, like 40 years later, today they have their own land. There are various initiatives that they run by themselves. They are into food production, food processing. They run a community radio initiative. They run a community media initiative. There's this millet-based cafe restaurant that they run. And especially during COVID, when the pandemic happened and a lot of migrant laborers were returning to Zahirabad, they were giving these women who didn't have their own land or who didn't have any capital to in their own name. They were offering like free food and millet-based drinks to these people, and also to the health workers. So that's the kind of transformation that has happened like in the last 40 years. They run their own seed bank, they run their own alternative PDS, public distribution system, and so on. If we take the case of Tribal Health Initiative in Sutlingi Valley, 1993, when they started, the infant mortality rate was one of the highest in the country, 147, which means like 1,000 children, if 1,000 children are born in a year in Sutlingi Valley, 147 of them die within a year. And like the maternal mortality rate was also like really high. And from there, like within a few years, they were able to bring it down to 20 and almost zero now. And how did that happen? So the approach that the founders, both of them doctors, Reggie and Lalita, like Malayali couple they are, and that they took was, their idea was that okay, 70% of the health issues can be addressed by the community themselves if they are equipped enough for it. And 20% they might need a doctor, and 10% a hospital would be required. So they focused on the 70%. They equipped women from the community to become health auxiliaries who could take care of the health of the community. So the idea of a health Swaraj. And from there, they further later moved on to like farming. So there's a Sutlingi Organic Farmers Association, which has about like 800 farmers involved in it. But when they started, like it took them like 2 whole years for 4 farmers to shift to organic farming from the conventional chemical intensive farming. And they are also involved in like local governance today. So these plays also tell the story that it like for the kind of transformation that we wish to see, it takes so much time. And this also why these are the kind of spaces where we host our fellowships orientation workshop for the fellows. The beginning of the journey starts at at such spaces, because these are fellows who are in their 20s who with a great deal of energy and will and to make change. And these spaces give the idea that the kind of change that we wish to see takes time, and that is a lifelong commitment. Yeah.
Okay, Ashik. We have almost come to the end of our episode. Before we leave, I want to ask you this one question. You are an avid traveler, and I know that you are a great storyteller. So, was there this one moment in your travels which you keep going back to? Something that's very close to your heart and that touched you? Because I love traveling myself, so I'm pretty curious to know, was there this one moment in your life?
Yes, yeah. There are several, and this is like one story which I keep sharing, because it again comes back to this idea of connection, and addressing the disconnection. So in 2018, I was on a personal learning journey, meeting with different individuals and initiatives working on education reform and sustainability. And one of the initiatives that I was visiting was Puvidam in Dharmapuri, Tamil Nadu. So Puvidam is a farm school, and Dharmapuri is a water scarce region. It's a drought-prone region. And my question before going to Puvidam was, how does a farm school function in a drought-prone region? And as I visited, there were like a few methods, techniques which I was already familiar with. Like for instance, using a 3-bucket mechanism for washing the utensils instead of a running tap, and the use of dry toilets instead of like water flush and so on. So that I was already familiar with. But something that really like struck me was, so children. So it is partially a residential school. So about 120 children, out of which around 80 of them like stay in the campus. Only about like 40 are from the community back then. So the children, when they take bath, they get into this, like in the bathroom, they get into this tumbler remove their clothes into a tumbler and then take baths so that they can wash their clothes in the same water.
Wow.
And the detergents and the soap that they use is made by themselves, which has the least impact like on the soil, so that this water isn't directly fed to the farm without any other treatment or processing. So that was something that was entirely new to me. So as someone who's gone to school, I know that okay, 75% of the earth is water, but only 2% can be used. There are communities, people who are facing water scarcity and so on. Like so, this intellectual information is always there, but how does that learning really gets like embodied? So that happened when I was actually like living that experience. So now not just about water, like any other resources that I consume, this thought would kick in. That learning was thus embodied with the experiential learning that happened over there. Yeah, and that is what we facilitate at Travelers University too, to learn things directly through experiences. Yeah.
It is true, travel does teach us a lot. But Ashik, what fascinates me here is that you have co created a platform where we get to experience these stories with you, get to know about our livelihoods, impact of social entrepreneurship, and the realities at grassroots levels. Thank you for doing what you do. And this was one interesting episode. Thank you for saying yes to my podcast and keep inspiring us, Ashik.
Thank you.
Yes, yes.
And to our lovely viewers, stay tuned for more episodes under No Planet V. Thank you.